Hello New Zealand, I'm Bob McCoskrie. This is episode number 93 of Straight Talk, and it's a very special one because we're coming to you from the Forum on the Family. We have recorded this episode in front of a live audience. In fact, let us give you a shot of the audience. Audience, give us a smile, give us a wave, give us a cheer. Woo! There we go, you're all looking great. Tonight we are going to discuss trust in the media is at an all-time low, and seemingly well-deserved. How can the media win back the trust? Do they even want to? New Zealand has one of the worst rates of child abuse in the OECD. How do we solve the cancer of child abuse? Despite pledges to remove the radical and age-inappropriate gender and sexuality education in schools, it still seems to be happening. Why? And will we ever see a Christian party in Parliament? And does it really matter? And if we have a chance, we'll ask the panellists whether they think we're at a cultural tipping point, which is the theme of the Forum on the Family. Without further ado, in person, actually on stage, is our illustrious panel. And starting from the far, far, far right, is Ashley Church. Ashley, good to have you here.
Yeah, good, Bob. Yeah,
Hey, take the applause. It's the only time people will clap for you.
Exactly.
Because once you start talking, people will think you're an absolute nutter.
Listen, a couple of things. I did note earlier I might be in a crowd shot, so I prepared for it. And secondly, I did notice, because you've got an illustrious former broadcaster here who's an icon in the country. You've got a former MP, very respected. You've got the leader of a major political party, former leader. Well, you're struggling for choices, by the way.
A filler. We needed a filler.
That's fair.
Right, speaking of that, Rodney Hyde, all the way from Queenstown. Rodney, great to have you here. Let's hear it for Rodney Hyde.
I'm just a bit upset that I'm not on the far, far right.
Yeah. You were, but I think you've moderated. Have you?
No, but I've always been described as a far, far right, and so it was quite something to have someone else take that off me.
Yeah, okay. Well, we'll come back to that. We'll ask why the media keep on doing that. And as we said, Christine Rankin was scheduled to appear, but she's come down with influenza and every possible bug that seems to be around at the moment. But we were stoked not because she was sick, but because we knew the next cab off the rank was just as good. And would you welcome, please, Tanya Onkovic?
Thank you. Right in the middle, right in the centre.
Yeah, I know, the rose between the thorns.
Yes.
Okay. And finally to my left here, Peter Williams. Last time I had him on stage was a couple of years ago, and I was supposed to be interviewing him. As soon as he got up on stage, he just started talking to me, and I thought, typical broadcaster. Anyway, Peter, nice to have you here, all the way from Wanaka.
Thank you, Bob. I'll try and be a little less loquacious in this broadcast. I'll try. No promises. Do you know what that word means or not?
Bruce Logan, you in the house. What does loquacious mean?
Yes.
I have no idea. What does it mean? Less talky.
Yeah, something like that.
Like my wife. Okay. Right. Let's get straight. Image of the week this week. Image has to be this. It is 650 social conservatives gathered together at the Forum on the Family. So it's a great view. There we are. Awesome. It's been an amazing day, and you will hear lots of reports about it. All right, let's get into our topics. And what we've done is we've kind of picked a topic that fits with each of the panellists that they, sort of major in, but we want to find out what all the panellists think. And so our first topic is, can the media win back the trust? Now, let's just show you a couple of images. Firstly, trust in media with the AUT. I did touch on this in my earlier presentation. It's number 4, Gordon. Trust in media. We can see that trust in media has gone down from 53% to the latest one was 32%. Less than 1 in 3 of us trust the media. Image number 5, the trust in media, the AUT shows that actually our trust is one of the worst in the OECD, the major countries. And in image number 6, we saw that the top 10 platforms, the orange bars represent, or the red bars represent the kind of the mainstream or legacy media as we call them. But you can see there that Instagram, YouTube and Facebook are moving up in terms of our source of news, which really upsets, of course, the legacy media. And then if we look at image number 7 in terms of the Edelman Trust meter, it shows there on the right-hand side, media trust, the global trust is 48%, that far right block there, and our trust is just 26%, 28%. There we are. Remove your glasses, Bob. And one more question before we start off with Peter, because I know he's got a lot to talk on this topic. The reasons for not trusting the news. The top reasons were that the reporting in the news is biased and not balanced. News is too much a result of the political leaning of the newsroom. The news is too opinionated and lacks factual information. And there's a lack of transparency in the way the news media operate. And the fifth reason was government financial support for the media in New Zealand means you cannot trust journalists to hold the government account. Right, Peter, as a member of the media, former media
member
of the mainstream media, what's it been like watching the downfall of the mainstream media?
It's been very sad, very sad. I have to say, though, Bob, that in 2025, there are a couple of incidents, a couple of stories that gave me optimism, cause for optimism anyway. The first was Jim Grennan at NZME wanted to stage a boardroom coup, become the chair of the company, and obviously use his influence to put a slightly different slant on the way that the Herald in particular covers stories. Sadly, that was resisted, and I see with the NZME annual report that came out just a few days ago, they spent hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, I think it was $400,000, in fighting Jim Grennan's move. In the end, they got a watered-down version of a new board with Stephen Joyce installed as the chair. Grennan is on the board. Philip Crump, the lawyer, formerly Thomas Cranmer, great investigative journalist during the COVID days in 2022, 2023. He now heads up an editorial board. And it's all just a little soft. So I don't see a lot of change coming in the Herald's editorial direction. That editorial board comprises Crump and a guy called Brent Webbling, whom I hadn't heard of, but apparently he's a former press secretary to some National Party grandees like Bill English and Simon Power. And then there's a couple of women, one of whom was the former editor of the Sunday Star-Times, to which you might say, wow. And then you have Josie Pagani, who is somebody with a Labour Party and Alliance background. She might be seen these days as more centre-left rather than hard-left. So you've got two men and two women, you've got two righties and two lefties. That's the editorial board that the Herald's installed. The question is, will they be able to have any influence on the editorial direction of the Herald?
So when you look at the 6 o'clock news, though,
Yep.
I mean, what's going on there when they're pushing clearly a one-sided view?
Yeah.
Has that been a new thing? I mean, you must have had that pressure as well.
Well, the people running, the main man running the 6 o'clock news, who was a mate of mine, and I was a groomsman at his wedding 2 or 3 years ago, Tati Urali, is a good old lefty socialist, and he's from Wellington, from a large Samoan family, and he makes no bones about his political leanings. So it does not surprise me that the One News program on a nightly basis, particularly in the last 18 months or so, has been attacking the government.
Okay, Tanya, I mean, you must love the media, being a former politician.
I did have a few experiences with it, I must admit. And you know that saying, when someone gives you enough reasons to not trust them, then you believe them. And the media keep giving us reasons to not trust them. And until they change that and change their behaviour, we're not going to pay attention. And the other thing too is people now absorb information differently. We want it quickly and we scroll through. And if we're scrolling and we get to a media outlet, we go, oh no, I don't trust them. We'll keep scrolling. So the way that people are absorbing information, or even the way people buy now, is very different.
Yeah.
So they're less tolerant and they're less trusting. So the media actually have to win our trust back.
Right. Rodney, when you were in politics, did the media act the same way that they're acting today, kind of the gotcha question and the grand and going for the most radical MP in the House to get their news?
A little, but nowhere near as bad as they are now. When I was there, which is a long time ago now, they were biased in the sense that they were lefties. And they'd been to university and done a BA, and so they thought like that. And they'd never been out in the real world and had that leftiness of them knocked out. But they would try to be fair, and most importantly, they would try to be factual. And if they got something wrong, it would upset them. And I had many direct experiences of that. What we have now in our world is people who don't believe in objective fact or truth. And so it's just power and who is exercising it. It's a very lazy way of looking at the world and a very lazy way of writing it up. But that's how they present it. Find the victim, find the oppressor, and write the story. Truth, fact, they would laugh in your face or behind your back, more likely, if you tried to raise it.
And the worst thing of all, Rodney, is that when they have a few hard truths put in their face, as in the RNZ report from their former head of news, Richard Sutherland, what's the initial reaction? It's all crybaby stuff. Oh, we should have been consulted.
Yeah.
We don't like this. So they can't take it. They can give it out, but they can't take it.
Yeah.
And I would like to think that RNZ might have the cojones to follow through on some of the recommendations from Richard Sutherland, but gee, with its current board and its current chief executive, I'm not very hopeful of it.
Well, it's a great point you make, Peter,
Yeah.
because if you don't believe in the truth,
Yeah.
then when something...
How can you report it?
Yeah, when something contrary is pointed out
Yeah.
to you, the only thing you can do is get angry and get violent.
I'll tell you why they won't. I'll tell you why they won't. Radio New Zealand won't change. And I'm going to put a slightly different slant on what Rodney just said.
What, you're saying I'm wrong?
Where's Louise? Where's Louise? Is he ever wrong? Yeah. So up until, let's say 2020, I can't define an exact time, but let's say it was 2020 and just prior to COVID, the media prided themselves on a form of impartiality. Pete's right, there was always leftists in the newsroom, but that they wanted to at least provide the pretense of balance. So they would always have one voice on one side and one voice on the other in order to give the impression that they were providing you with balance on an issue. That changed 2 or 3 years ago, probably around the COVID time. Doesn't particularly matter when it was. But here's the difference. Because I thought for a long time this was simply that they had lost sight of objectivity, they'd lost sight of bias, and that all they needed was to have that pointed out and that they would restore it again. That's not it. That's not it. I've had an epiphany about this, and the epiphany is the reason they don't do it is because they've changed their whole modus operandi as being journalists. It's now about we've got to educate the public and we've got to recondition them with respect to the views that they hold. So the reason they don't show you other views is because they don't accept those other views, and you're wrong. You're wrong and they're right, and their role is to tell you you're wrong, and the only way to do that is to make sure that you only hear the voice that they're putting across through those channels.
And a lot of that, Ashley, a lot of that comes from journalism training as well. Like, I left school and went to work at a radio station on the periphery of a newsroom in the sports office. And it meant that you sort of learnt on the job. And if you were a newspaper reporter, it was the same. I had friends who worked down the road in Dunedin from Radio Otago down at the ODT and the Evening Star. They were sports reporters, cadet journalists who left school with school certificate, UE, had some basic writing English skills on the job, and away they went. Learned on the job from crusty old buggers who, smoked in the corner, and that was the way it was. Nowadays, to get in the front door at any radio station into a newsroom, you've got to have a university degree and have done a postgraduate course in journalism. And it's same with education. It used to be in education, my parents were teachers, they went to training college, they were trained to be teachers.
Yep.
When you worked in newspapers and radio stations as young people, you were trained to be journalists on the job.
Yep.
Nowadays, you go to university, and who knows what is taught there.
Totally.
But when they come out the other end, it's certainly not being trained to do those jobs.
Yep.
Tanya, when you were in Parliament, you were promoting, for example, palliative care as an alternative to euthanasia. You were also, part of the defining woman in legislation. So those weren't very favoured by the mainstream media. So did you feel that Hostility?
Oh, very much so. And interesting you mentioned the palliative care one. I was interviewed actually by a couple of stations on that, and they really tried to get some gotcha moments with me, and they never got them, and no story was ever written. No. So there was very little coverage on the palliative care work that I was doing. I had to do it all on social media. And yes, look, I was labelled anti-this and anti-that, and, you know, those are the knocks you've got to take when you want to stand up and be courageous, though, and be brave for the young girls we saw before on the stage. So someone's got to lead, and you've just got to not listen to the noise in the background, because it is just noise, and just stand up and be brave. And
Rodney, do you think that the media lost trust as a result of the whole COVID coverage? They really basically followed one line, and with the compliance of the government, they shut down any dissent, and that's when everybody thought, hang on, you're not reporting, you're indoctrinating.
Indeed. COVID legitimised propaganda. And you'd think at the end of the COVID years and the fear that we'd slip back to where we were, but no, it stayed with the propaganda. And it's extraordinary. And I think, again, the important thing is not only do they repeat the lies endlessly, can't admit they're wrong, but most importantly, it's to crush dissent.
Yeah. Just think, Rodney, that line famously that Jacinda Ardern used at one of her 1 o'clock press conferences, you know, we are the single source of truth. If you don't hear it from us, it is not true. I mean, in a past time in New Zealand, the population and the media would have fallen over laughing at that. I mean, you just imagine Muldoon saying that in the 1980s. We would have said, you've got to be joking, mate. You know, we just would not have taken that politician seriously. Yet somehow we bowed to the throne of Jacinda.
I think that was a confluence of several things that fortuitously or otherwise...
Is Peter wrong now?
He is. So, no, he's not. So... The spotlight's off, mate. So I think what happened then was that there was a confluence of things. There was obviously the Prime Ministership of Ardern and the statements that she was making, but at the same time, Peter, I think, as you talked about before, there was a change taking place in broadcasting school or the universities that were teaching media studies, so that it was acceptable and it was okay for people to actually do that. Mm-hmm. So if that had happened 5 years previously, not in Muldoon's time, just 5 years previously, it wouldn't have flown. Wouldn't have flown during John Key's era. Or Bill English's era. It's because you had a woman Prime Minister, it happened to be her, and you had a new batch of fresh-faced journalists who wanted to promote this new position, and she was the face of it. So.
Yeah, and at the time you had political editors of both the major networks who were women of about the same age, of the same generation. So you might think it was groupthink. Here was the Prime Minister of the country, and arguably the two most influential journalists in the country, all of the same generation.
Tova and Jessica.
Yeah.
Hey, that would make a great McBlog. Thank you for that. Right, this is why I don't do live straight talk, because I can never get a word in. We need to move on to the second topic. Slightly more serious, and this was Christine Rankin's topic, but Tanya Onkovic has taken it over as the kind of key one on this one. It's child abuse. We have a cancer of child abuse. Let me just show you a couple of quick graphs. Firstly, number 9, Salvation Army. Latest report, this is the assault, abuse or neglect. You can see the increase there. The next one I showed you earlier about the serious child assaults are increasing. 73% serious assaults without injury, 30% serious assaults resulting in injury. Next one, this is police, serious assaults on children resulting in injury. You'll see that red bar there, by the way, 2007, anti-smacking law, that's worked really well. And then these are the cases that we've seen just this year. There's baby Roo there. And then the next image, 4 cases. Beautiful baby girl, baby's body found, 6-month-old baby at Foxton. And then just over the weekend, we had the latest one, which is a newborn at Albert Park. So, Tanya, what's the solution? Because we have a cancer of child abuse, one of the worst rates in the OECD.
It's so interesting that you use the analogy of a cancer, because to me, it looking from a 30,000-foot view, it's like it's decades of this insidious, slow creep of the destruction of society, family, individuals, community, anything that's wholesome. It's been a slow creep and an insidious one of destroying to the point where people's personal identity is being destroyed. And that is resulting in hurt people. So, for example, about 30 years ago, when I was facilitating a group of people with eating issues, eating disorders and that, more than 30% of them in that group had been sexually abused. And so we've got this pattern of hurt people continuing to hurt people. And their hurt is like a cancer. And the symptoms, sadly, are often our children. Because who do you hurt in that moment of rage where you don't know what to do with your own pain? It's either alcohol, drugs, excess food, whatever else is out there destroying us. And there are solutions. There needs to be a willingness for the solution to happen, though. There are, what do they call it, low-hanging fruit solutions that we could have. I think do things like looking at the legislation around alcohol. Alcohol is such a destructive thing to society, yet it's promoted. I look at how can we encourage people to take some personal responsibility for their lives, to promote emotional and physical well-being, because what you think and what you feel about yourself is going to manifest and it's the children that will suffer. So all of that hurt, it's just a repeating cycle of hurt people. Look, I'll let others talk. I've got so much more to add. As far as anti-smacking goes, I agree with you. You know, I was smacked as a kid. All Croatian kids are smacked. You know, yeah, for sure. You know, the difference with us, though, is our father would get us to go out and pick our own branch. We used to have something called a shipka, and the discipline and the learning for us was that walk to the tree and back, picking our own branch. And by the time we got back, we'd learnt the lesson, we'd learnt boundaries, we'd learnt respect for our parents. And by that time, Dad had usually cooled down as well, which was great. You know, I have a deep belief that if we follow some of those basic Christian principles of honouring our mother and father and doing things like that and holding the family unit together, there can be healing. I've got one more point, but I'll let the others say something else.
And I want to ask Rodney, because he was in Parliament when the law was passed, but just before I do, Ashley, what do you think?
Oh, so firstly, I didn't realise my parents were Croatian, but clearly
No, you were just a naughty little kid.
Right.
That was your problem.
I actually agree with what Tanya is saying, but I want to drill down on one particular part. She was talking about this just not being a systemic thing recently. It's something that goes back decades. And I want, in particular, and you did promise me I would be booed, and this is probably the topic I will be on. So when you look at the last 20 or 30 years, if you look at teachers and nurses, you go back 20 or 30 years, teachers and nurses were respected professions, and even when we talk about wage negotiations, most people will default to this position where they say we need to pay them more because they work hard and they're fluffy and cuddly and lovely. Right now, and there are exceptions to this obviously, we've all got relatives who are in those professions, but a big chunk of that profession are actually the enemy. And the stuff that's happening in our society now has been developing over the last 20 or 30 years as a result of the stuff that's going on in our health system and our education system. And the people that are infiltrating our kids are the very people that we thought were warm and fluffy and kind. And if you're going to solve the issue, you've got 20 years of rolling that back. That's going to take us a long time.
Why did you think you were going to get booed for that?
I was
That's
hoping.
a very good
promised.
statement.
You promised. But anyway...
Okay. Rodney, you were in Parliament when the anti-smacking law was passed. John Key whipped the whole National Caucus to vote for it. ACT was the only party, and you were the leader of ACT. Was that still a right vote for you?
Oh, absolutely. You've got to hand it to the left because they have an amazing ability to come up with phrases and words that sound so wonderful. And here we are, heartbroken over these babies that are beaten, tortured and killed. And our Parliament decides to do something about child abuse and define it as a loving parent smacking their kids to discipline them. And Parliament voted for that. Did nothing, as we all knew, for child abuse. But of course, one more step to the destruction of the family and parental authority and the disciplining of our young children.
Yeah.
They have run amazing campaigns. It wasn't easy to take the society that we had in the 1960s and get it to where we are, but they did it.
Peter, can we talk about anti-smacking at the same time as child abuse? Because the proponents who say child abuse is... the people who say that smacking is wrong would say, how can you say you're against child abuse when you want to smack your children?
Well, it seems counterfactual, but I think those of us who have raised children know that smacking is an act of love. I mean, it sounds bizarre, but it's true. It's about disciplining your children.
That's what I told my kids every time. I'm not sure they believe me.
Did you tell them it hurt you more than them?
I did. It did. I was gutted every time.
But what it does is that it instructs them what the boundaries are. And it's keeping children inside the boundaries that raises good children. I think that Rodney's talked about 2007 as a time when child abuse has risen exponentially in this country. In many respects, the breakdown of society goes back to the 1970s and the extension of the welfare state and the introduction of the DPB. Because that was, on reflection, and we're 50 years on now, 51 years on since the DPB started being paid in 1974.
And that's when the decline in the marriage rate started.
That was the payment that started the destruction of the family unit.
The state became the daddy.
Precisely. And what it meant was that when I was a teenager at school in the late 60s, if your parents weren't getting on too well, and that was in the time of, one parent incomes, one income in the family. If your parents weren't getting on too well, they pretty much stayed together because there was no way for mum to bring up the kids by herself. As soon as that DPB came in, and we all thought it was a pretty good idea because we knew that there were abused women, battered women and the like that needed financial support to be able to be solo parents. But what it did was it created an industry of solo parenting. And for 50 years, well, the figures tell the story, don't they? I don't think you need to be a rocket scientist to work that out. But can we reverse it? Well, Ashley talked about reversing 20, 30 years of indoctrination and education. Can we do it in social policy? Be a brave person that tries to.
Tanya, what was your final point before we move on?
I don't know if anyone's noticed how angry people are, and they've become a lot more angry in the last few years, and there has been so much division that has been pushed. I believe the narrative of unity needs to be pushed now, because that division, that anger, it divides the family, and that anger is within the parents, and ultimately the children are suffering.
Bob, I'm not a great fan of the state interfering in one's lives, but we've had a ministry for Maori development, we've had a ministry for Pacific people, we've got a ministry for disabled people, we've got a ministry for women.
Can't define it, by the way.
I was getting to that. I would like to see all those go, but if you were going to have what you might call a demographic ministry, why not a ministry for the family?
Well, we tried to have the Families Commission and they couldn't define a family.
Yeah.
That was your time, Rodney, wasn't it? United Future came in and they lost their way, didn't they?
Often happens, Bob.
All right, we won't lose our way. If you are commenting on our Facebook or Instagram or X or wherever you're watching the Straight Talk, this has been pre-recorded at the Forum on the Family, so you just argue amongst yourself in the comment section like you do every Straight Talk anyway. Let's move on, because we're fast running out of time. Are our kids still being indoctrinated? Let me just show you a couple of things. Image 14, firstly, we have put together what's being taught in schools. 15, they're still teaching these definitions in schools. 16, this was a handout which was given to Year 8 kids. I won't leave it up too long, but it's the 5 types of sex. This was given to Year 8 after they'd had training by Family Planning. By the way, Family Planning have changed their name because we've shamed them so much. They're now Sexual Wellbeing Aotearoa, which is a complete anomaly. Here's another fact sheet, number 17. This is the type of stuff that Year 10 kids are being taught about. And if you go to Long Bay College, number 18, you get taught that there's, how many are there? 100 112 genders and 200 plus sexualities. No wonder our kids are stressed. And then, just to wind you all up, number 19, on Pink Shirt Day, the PPTA on their website, this was on the homepage of their website, saying that Pride should be celebrated every day of the year. It's still happening. This is your topic, Rodney, because you are hot under the collar on this one. And it's an uphill battle because we thought it was being taken away. But, I mean, maybe this goes back to what Ashley was saying, is that you can get rid of the curriculum, but you've got to get rid of the activists.
Yes. The conference is well named because if we're going to beat this one, we're going to have to be very courageous. And I was very taken by Jeff, Miriam, and particularly Zara and Izzy, because they showed us the courage that we need. We also need to be armed with the information, and thank you, Bob, and let kids be kids, Penny Marie, that are arming parents. I know of this only as a dad. And I live in Arrowtown, which is the most beautiful little village you can imagine, with a beautiful little school. And my beautiful little girls go off there. And at 10, they taught my little girl that she could be born in the wrong body. I could not believe that. Inside Out had 2 hours with my daughter in class time without my knowledge to teach them that they could be trans, because I needed to get them when they're young so they could get them on the puberty blockers. When my daughter was 12, she was at high school, and the young 23-year-old PE teacher, without my knowledge, or my wife's knowledge, wanted to teach my daughter how to do anal sex safely in the classroom with boys. You might think, what the heck is going on in Queenstown? This is the situation in every school in New Zealand. So, by the way, it was a huge effort to find out what they were to be taught. We had to go and buy the booklets because the school told me they were copyright and I couldn't have them.
Which is always a red flag, by the way, isn't it?
It's a red flag. They never tell you that it's not compulsory. They actually told me it was compulsory because thanks to Bob and Penny Marie, I knew it wasn't. It won't change no matter who is in government for a couple of reasons. It struck me. I've been all the way through the system and you won't find anyone that's made the decision. Everyone just looks at you and listens politely and carries on. That's the principal, that's the board chair, that's the minister, that's the Prime Minister. Sort of like it's all out of their hands. And then they sort of invert it and it's back down to the school board. The school board kicks it back up to the government, so on and so forth. And then you meet at the chalk face, they call it, don't they? You meet the teachers. And these are sad cases of young people who have been absolutely indoctrinated into a cult, and they believe it fervently. And the more you protest, the more they draw on their teaching that parents are the problem. There are old men like Bob McCoskrie and Rodney Hyde that are dinosaurs that want to hate on homosexuals and transgender people, and you must make sure that you get their children away from these colonialist abusers. And so they carry on. They don't care what the government says. They will not stop. I can't stop it. But what we can do is this. We can find our brave button, inspired, And I'm afraid God is calling Zara and Izzy. And what we have to do is have in our prayers every day them. We have to wrap our arms around those two girls because they are going to come under attack like no other two girls have. And we have to give them all the love and support that we possibly can. And we need to have them going around talking to our young people. And I can promise you, we're in for the fight of our lives because we have seen these people up close and they are dangerous. We saw them at the Posey Parker and Albert Park. What could be more gentle and inoffensive? And there they were, violent, attacking, and where were our police? Where were our courts? Where were our political leaders? Hiding around the corner while grandmothers got beaten. And that's why it is going to take Zara and Izzy, because my daughters would listen to them and be moved by them. They've got the story, they've got the voice, but they can't do it alone.
But Rodney, who's going to let them in the door? Will Izzy and Zara be able to speak for 2 hours to the 10-year-olds at Arrowtown Primary School?
Well, that's where we've got to find our voice to demand it.
There is a solution.
That's where we have to get strong and brave. And I can tell you, if I didn't have Penny Marie supporting me and Let Kids Be Kids in that network, if I didn't have Bob McCoskey supporting me, I wouldn't have done it. Because you're just hated upon by your own children's school.
There is a solution to this, Rodney.
Oh, thank God.
It would take a brave... That's what I'm here for.
I love it, actually. You tell me where I'm wrong,
This is why I
and you
invited
put me
him.
right.
There was a reason.
My
Go,
heart
Ashley.
is love. So there is a solution, but it would take a really brave government to implement what I'm about to say. And it comes down to just 2 words. It's 2 words that if they were implemented across all government policy to do with kids would resolve issues not just around sex education, but around things like smacking, around what's happening in the health sector with transitioning and detransitioning. 2 words that if the government put them at the top of all legislation and they formed the basis of all legislation would fix it, parental consent. Parental consent should underpin everything that the government does in this space. If you do that and put it at the top of the triangle, this gets solved.
Tanya?
This really touches close because I was the same as a 14-year-old and I didn't like who I was. I didn't like my body and I hated all that, just like what we heard before. But I had God and I didn't have a cell phone and I wasn't indoctrinated and people left me alone and I grew out of it. And over time, I grew to love who I am. It's a long journey, but it's actually part of being a teenager. So that's why I'm very passionate about this. Who am I is one of the hardest questions to answer.
Yeah, and
Just from your time in Parliament, though, there's a lot of resistance within Parliament. I mean, within Parliament, there's a lot of radicalness pushing this agenda. So it is an uphill battle, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. You saw how many fake Facebook profiles I had made of me and then questions and answers and fake phone calls and a member opposite attacking me and she had to apologise in the end. They were really trying to shut me down. So I did have a lot. And I thought, oh, great, that means I'm doing good. You have to be brave. You have to actually have a spine. As Rodney said, it's tough.
Yeah.
But if we don't stand strong and have courage now, who's going to?
yeah. I guess Tanya's just touched on something there when she talked about the fake Facebook profiles, because teenagers today, it must be so difficult getting them away from those devices and from the addiction that those iPhones and those iPads and those computers provide to kids. That internet was supposed to be, well, it is the biggest revolution of our lifetime. It's as big a revolution in the evolution of mankind as the printing press was back in the 1600s. So This is the modern day printing press, and it has brought great things. It has brought increased knowledge. It has brought an increased democratization into the world. But it has put our teenagers in particular in the firing line. And you know that the iPhone first came to market in 2008. That means that this year's year 13s, the 17, 18-year-olds, they will leave high school this year having been part of the iPhone has been part of their life for their entire life.
Yeah.
And that is frightening, and there is just no stopping. And we had discussion about it here at this forum earlier today, and it is really, really important that somehow, and I don't know how you do it, somehow somebody has got to put some controls on those people running the algorithms.
Rodney?
It's a case study. It needs to be written up because it's been an amazing example of how literally half a dozen activists can subvert an entire country and make lies truth and absolutely cower every institution that we have.
Yeah.
And it's amazing, isn't it? Because you go along and you say, oh, we want you to be for inclusion. Oh, yeah, I want to be for inclusion. You might be a corporate, you might be the police force. Oh, well, what you need is the rainbow tick. Oh, yeah, no, we'll do the rainbow tick. Well, you just need to give a bit of koha, to the pride group and help the little kiddies that are having difficulty and being bullied at school. Oh, yes, we'll do that. And so everyone gets a rainbow tick and they proudly put it on their logo and look at us, we're doing our bit. And then, of course, you can't step out of line. And so there's half a dozen activists that run that tick business get to decide what you can and can't say. And you find schools, school boards, the police force, politicians, they're all too scared now to tell the truth. And this is not a truth that isn't unimportant, because we're losing our children. There's the extreme example of those that go through the surgery and the chemical transition, so-called. But every child at their most vulnerable, having ripped from under them the opportunity and ability to develop their identity, because they're left just questioning it and thinking it's for them to decide, not God.
Okay, we need to get active. We need to get going. We've got 5 minutes and we've got one more topic to do. Will we ever see a Christian party in Parliament, or do we just want to see more Christians in Parliament? This was a question that I thought Ashley would really love to get into. So let's get straight into it. We've got 5 minutes, team, so let's do this quick. Ashley,
Yeah,
go.
so very quickly, yes, we will. Whether it'll be the next election or the one after, I don't know, but there's an inevitability to it. And let me tell you quickly why. So MMP came in 93, I think, or 96. Back in those days, if you were a Christian, you voted for National because you could trust them with the moral issues that were important to you. That has eroded, that's eroded over the last 20 odd years to the point now where Nationals, you can't trust National with moral issues. Some of my friends who should have known better assumed that New Zealand First would pick up that task in the last election. They haven't. They're not your Christian party, and if you vote for them at the next election, you haven't learned the lesson of this one. If you want a Christian party, you've got to vote for a Christian party. It's got to be a party that comes out, doubles down on this stuff. And here's the key, though, and the reason it hasn't worked up until now. You've got to get that. This is not Life of Brian, where you've got the People's Front of Judea and the Popular Front. You've got to get these guys together as one party putting a united voice, because there's enough Kiwis to vote for them if they can be unified.
Okay. Peter, in defence of New Zealand First, would it be fair to say, though, that they have been the one voice of social conservative values?
They have.
In this Parliament?
In this Parliament, yes, but New Zealand First have got a history going back to 1996 of being the flip-flop party, haven't they? And one.
We can all change, though.
What, change from?
We can all come right. I mean, you were with TVNZ.
That's a very cheap.
It's a low blow.
Yeah, that's a low blow.
Yeah, but-
That's defamatory.
But I know it's going back a few years now, but how much was the cause of Christian politics in this country put back by the Graham Capel case?
Yeah.
I mean, when was that? 2006?
99 or 2000?
Yeah,
might
it
have
was
been a bit
certainly
later.
in the 2000s,
Yeah.
but there were great hopes with, it was called United Future, wasn't it?
No, it was a Christian coalition.
Christian Coalition, yeah.
Okay, Tanya, do you think Christian party or Christian politicians?
I always wore this in Parliament, and I can't tell you how many times people came up to me and said, "We're so happy to see a politician wearing a cross." And I even had people just walk up to me while I was in Parliament, but they would say it apologetically. I'm saying, be unapologetically faithful. And at the end of the day, God's looking for warriors and all leaders. So I personally, and I hope everyone else does, I want to hear at the end of my life, or even at the end of every day, "Well done, good and faithful servant." That's what
All right.
Can you tell us, though, you're the freshest out of Parliament, out of you and Rodney, by quite a number of years.
That's harsh, mate. That's harsh, Rodney.
How hard is
He
it
is
being a
hard.
Christian
He
in
is hard,
Parliament?
Oh, look, it wasn't hard for me because that's the most important thing in my life. I'll put God before anything and everything.
Yeah.
So for me personally, it wasn't hard. Yeah, that's my answer.
Okay, TVNZ's best broadcaster?
I've got some members of the Christian Party caucus. Tanya Rankovic, Rodney Hyde, Simon O'Connor, and for a bit of experience...
He's busy. He's trying to sell his cup. Which nobody wants because it wilts under pressure.
Okay. And just for, to handle the box, let's bring in Bill English.
Okay.
Just a thought.
Rodney?
I'd rather Christians in a Christian party because you're putting too much faith in a man or a woman that's running it. More Christians would be good. It's what we despise about Chris Luxon, actually, is that he's not Bill English. Because Bill English was a Christian first and a politician second. And he didn't sell out his faith. He never hid from it. He never shied away from it. And we could all understand that as voters, whether you're a Christian or not. What I don't understand is someone who's a Christian who runs away from it. Because if you're not prepared to stand up for that principle, what are you prepared to stand up
And
for?
attacks Israel. Tax Israel.
Israel.
Yeah.
So we need more Christians in Parliament across all political parties.
All right, we are out of time. Thank you for watching. We have come to you from the Forum on the Family. So this was recorded last Friday, but we hope you've enjoyed watching it. Thank you for watching Straight Talk. Thank you, Peter, for being here in person. TVNZ's best ever broadcaster.
No.
In fact, the only decent one. Tanya Unkovic. Rodney Hyde. And can someone please clap Ashley Church?
Oh, yay, Ashley.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching. We'll be back next Monday night with Straight Talk. Until then, good night. All right, you guys, buzz off.